It started in the fetid swamps of 4chan with Pizzagate and eventually escalated to the January 6th insurrection. In between, it took an even more sinister turn with the gruesome murders committed by Matthew Taylor Coleman. But Coleman wasn't the only person driven to kill by unhinged QAnon conspiracy theories. Let's get into it. Hi, and welcome to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Delaney, a true crime writer and all-around murder nerd. And on this channel, I like to talk about terrible cases involving the worst people on the planet, and I tend to cuss a lot. So if you're into that sort of thing, go ahead and subscribe. If not, that's cool. You do you. I'm going to go ahead and give a content warning here. If cases involving children are too much for you, you might want to sit this one out. Okay, with that out of the way, let's talk about some of these cases where people committed violence based on QAnon-fueled delusions. There are actually a lot of them, so I tried to pick the ones that showed the same kinds of patterns. One of the more infamous cases happened in Staten Island in March of 2019. You might remember this. That's when Anthony Comello shot and killed Francisco Colli, an alleged Gambino mob boss, because Comello had developed a delusional obsession believing that Colli was part of the deep state. When he was arrested, he gave several different accounts of the murder until finally admitting that he had tried to make a citizen's arrest of Colli. And when they argued, Comello shot him. Comello had tried to make citizens' arrests before. The month before that, he tried to arrest then-Mayor Bill de Blasio and California Congress members Adam Schiff and Maxine Waters, all notably major Democratic figures. It would later be discovered that he secretly ran an Instagram account under the handle Real America's Voice, where he posted far-right, pro-Trump, and yes, Nazi memes. In it, he posted that Democrats, who he often referred to as demons, should be arrested for treason. At his arraignment, he held up his hand for the cameras to show he had scrawled Q and other pro-Trump slogans on it. He was charged with second-degree murder and 2 counts of second-degree criminal weapon possession. In June of 2020, he was found mentally unfit to stand trial and was transferred to a mental health facility. The judge has issued a gag order on the case, so no new information is available, although it appears that Comello is still being held in the mental health facility. Just a couple of months before that was a slightly less well-known case in Seattle. In early January of 2019, 26-year-old Buckey Wolfe drove a homemade sword through his brother's skull, killing him, because he believed God had told him his brother was a lizard. Wolfe's Facebook page was filled with posts and memes supporting QAnon, fundamentalist Christian beliefs, and the Proud Boys. Though the group claims they never accepted him due to his obvious mental illness, anti-racist activists on Twitter have identified him in photos with the Seattle chapter, and some of its members reached out to him publicly on Facebook to check in on him. But even more troublingly, he had posted several unhinged rants accusing people, including his family members, of being lizards and reptiles, and vowing to destroy them, dash them to pieces, and scatter their bones. Immediately after he killed his brother, he called 911 and turned himself in. He told the dispatcher, kill me, I can't live in this reality." It was clear from the time of his arrest that he was suffering from severe mental illness, and he claimed he'd been diagnosed as schizophrenic. He was later acquitted of the charges by reason of insanity. More recently, in January of 2021, 45-year-old Troy Burke shot and killed his wife, 29-year-old Jessica Burke, because he believed that Jessica was a CIA asset involved in a sex trafficking ring. He also believed that Jessica had implanted a Neuralink device in his brain so other people could read his thoughts. He got this information, he claimed, through signals sent through his laptop from other QAnon members who were giving him instructions on actions to take to save the world. After 2 psychiatric evaluations, he was found incompetent to stand trial and the court accepted his plea of not guilty by reason of insanity. The judge has ordered additional psychiatric tests, and after that, it will be determined whether or not Burke will spend the rest of his life in a state mental health facility. These kinds of cases are bad enough. In each of them, the perpetrator was clearly mentally ill and latched on to one or more of the many conspiracy theories espoused by QAnon, which drove them even further into insanity and then violence. Yet, delusional as they were, there was a certain logic to their crimes. They believed they were saving children from sex trafficking and abuse, either by the deep state, lizard people, or just some unlucky individual. But there are some people who, like Matthew Taylor Coleman, have gone so far down the rabbit hole that they have taken the lives of children, the very people they think they are protecting. Just months before the tragic murders of the Coleman children was the case of Liliana Carrillo, a case that bore some tragic similarities to the case of Andrea Yates. Friends and family of the 30-year-old said that starting in 2020, while she was pregnant with their third child, her mental state began unraveling. On Facebook, she wrote about having random, invasive feelings of despair and pain. She said she was hating being a parent and wished she could go back in time. She wrote, "I have absolutely no patience or tolerance left." After her baby, Sierra, was born in October of 2020, her mental state worsened. She suffered from severe postpartum depression and had talked about killing herself. She began therapy but soon dropped out and refused to take any psychiatric medications. Instead, she began self-medicating with cannabis. By early 2021, according to her partner and father of her children, Eric Denton, she had lost touch with reality. She apparently believed that she alone was responsible for the COVID-19 pandemic. She had also likely been exposed to QAnon because she was also convinced that her hometown of Porterville, California, was the hub of a widespread child sex trafficking ring, and that Denton was part of it. She started making official allegations of child abuse against Denton, dragging in social workers and police in 2 counties. She claimed he was an alcoholic and had sexually abused their older daughter, 3-year-old Joanna. Denton denies this, and no evidence has ever been found to support her claims. Because of her extremely paranoid and erratic behavior, Denton began to fear for his children's lives. Both he and his cousin, an ER doctor, raised these red flags to LA County DCFS and the LA police on multiple occasions, begging for her to be given a psychiatric evaluation. But nothing was ever done. He was finally able to convince a judge to grant him emergency custody of their children, Joanna, 2-year-old Terry, and now 6-month-old Sierra, in March of 2021. Carrillo was ordered to turn over the children to Denton on Sunday, April 11th, and the custody hearing was set for the following Wednesday. But the day before she was supposed to hand the children over, Carrillo's mother discovered just how out of touch with reality her daughter really was. In the early morning hours of April 10th, Carrillo typed up a long, rambling email manifesto, attaching more than 100 pages of typed and handwritten notes, text messages, and images. In it, she painted herself as protecting her children from the supposed sexual abuse that was rampant in Porterville. She wrote, "I am removing myself and my children from this world because nothing will ever be the same. There is no going back from here." When Carrillo's mother came home from work later that morning, she found her 3 grandchildren all dead and Carrillo nowhere in sight. The scene of the crime was so gruesome that the first responders had to have emergency counseling to deal with what they'd seen. Media outlets at the time first reported that the children had been stabbed, but it would later be revealed they had been drowned and possibly bludgeoned. A few hours later, Carrillo was arrested in Tulare County, about 200 miles north of LA, after crashing a stolen Toyota pickup truck. In an interview from jail, Carrillo confessed that she drowned her children to protect them from sex trafficking.
Liliana, what happened to your 3 children in Reseda?
I drowned them.
Do you regret your actions?
I wish my kids were alive, yes.
You,
Do I wish that I didn't have to do that? Yes, but I prefer them not being tortured and abused on a regular basis for the rest of their life.
do you believe your children were physically harmed?
Yes.
To add to that, do you believe your children were physically harmed when you say you drowned them?
No. I did it as softly, or I don't know how to explain it, but I hugged them and I kissed them and I was apologizing the whole time. I love my kids.
She still has not stood trial as of the time I'm filming this, and there's no word about any mental health evaluations or determinations. And while it's not clear that she was a follower of QAnon specifically, her severe mental illness made it easy for the paranoid conspiracy theory about child sex trafficking rings to take hold of her mind, driving her to commit a crime far worse than the ones she claimed to be protecting them from. On September 4th, 2021, Polk County deputies were called to the home just outside of Lakeland, Florida. A man, who would later be identified as 33-year-old Bryan Riley, had approached the home while Justice Gleason, who lived there with his family, was mowing the lawn. Riley said he wanted to see Amber and that God had told him he needed to save her because she was going to kill herself. Gleason told Riley there was no one named Amber living there. They argued, and Gleason's mother, who also lived on the property, called the police. But Riley left before they arrived. Afterwards, Riley returned to his home that he shared with his fiancée in Brandon, about 35 miles away. He told his fiancée that he'd seen a man on a lawnmower and that God had sent him a message to stop his daughter's suicide. His fiancée would later tell investigators that he had been slowly unraveling for weeks leading up to the shooting, acting erratically and repeatedly claiming that he could communicate directly with God. The fiancé, apparently fed up with this delusional behavior, reportedly told him he could not speak to God, which made him extremely angry. They fought, and he told her, "There's no room for doubters in my life." So later that night, actually 4 a.m. the next morning, Riley returned to the Gleason home. Riley, a former Marine sharpshooter, was a veteran of the Afghanistan and Iraq wars and had also worked as a security contractor for the firm formerly known as Blackwater. He was, as police put it, well trained and ready for a firefight. First, he laid down a trail of glow sticks from the house to the road so he would be able to see to escape. Next, he slashed the tires on the family's vehicles and set their truck on fire. Then he broke into the home and began shooting, starting with Gleason's mother, Catherine Delgado, who was 62. As soon as he heard the noise, Gleason woke up his 11-year-old daughter and told her to hide in the bathroom. While she was hiding, she managed to call 911. Meanwhile, Riley continued his murder spree, shooting Gleason, then his partner, 33-year-old Teresa Lanham, as she held their 3-month-old son Jody in her arms. Riley shot Jody too. He also shot the family dog. After killing everyone else, Riley busted into the bathroom and dragged the 11-year-old out into the living room, yelling, "You don't need to call the cops. I'm the cops for God." He then began interrogating her, asking where Amber was. When the girl would insist that no one named Amber lived there, he would shoot her, first in the leg, then in her hands, and finally in her stomach, a total of 7 times. She said he told her, "Do you know why I killed your parents? They're sex traffickers." After he shot her in the stomach, she played dead, and Riley, thankfully, fell for it. But Polk County deputies had heard the first shots and called the nearby Lakeland police for backup. When they arrived, they found the truck on fire and Riley sitting outside, but he immediately ran back into the house and barricaded the door. They then heard another round of gunfire, followed by a woman screaming and a baby whimpering. Officers tried to enter the home through the front door, but it was barricaded. They made their way around to the rear of the property, where they spotted Riley again, who was wearing full body armor, including a bulletproof vest. Riley then shot at the officer who first arrived on scene. The officer returned fire and was able to run away and take cover. Riley then started shooting at the other officers, and they exchanged heavy gunfire, with dozens, if not hundreds, of rounds fired before Riley retreated back into the home, according to Polk County Sheriff Grady Judd. Apparently, one of those bullets had hit Riley, because soon he came out with his hands in the air. Once in custody, he told police, "You know why I did this." Inside the home, the police found the 11-year-old girl, who was still amazingly alive. She was transported to a nearby hospital where, after multiple surgeries, she did recover from her wounds. When police questioned Riley, he told them he was there to rescue someone named Amber from sex trafficking. He also told police that he had been doing methamphetamines. At the hospital where he was taken to be treated for his gunshot wound, he tried to take a weapon off of one of the nearby officers and had to be restrained and sedated. Later, in custody, he told police that he committed the murders because the voices told him to. He said the victims had begged for their lives, but he shot them anyway. When asked why, he said, "I'm one sick dude." Riley has been indicted on 4 counts of first-degree murder and 6 counts of attempted first-degree murder of a law enforcement officer, animal cruelty, arson, and 4 counts of shooting within an occupied dwelling. The state is going to try for the death penalty. His defense has filed motions indicating they're going to try for an insanity plea, but there hasn't been any new development as of the time that I'm filming this. The date of his trial hasn't been set yet. Troubled people engaging in violent behavior brought on by delusions about lizard people, Satanists, and child sex traffickers isn't new. But the stunning reach of QAnon conspiracy theories, combined with the stress of the pandemic, seems to have driven an alarming jump in these kinds of cases. It's gotten so bad, national security officials have labeled QAnon as a serious terrorist threat. And while there's no evidence that Carrillo or Riley were wrapped up with QAnon specifically, the fact that their delusions centered on imaginary sex trafficking victims doesn't seem coincidental either. These delusions didn't come out of nowhere. The belief that there are all these child sex trafficking rings everywhere is the core of the sprawling web of conspiracy theories that is QAnon. It's what draws people in and gets them worked up into a righteous rage, feeling justified to do anything to save the children. If anything, though, these cases point out the piss-poor state of our mental health system in this country. Most of these people, if they had gotten the help they needed earlier, might not have committed these crimes. If you or someone you love is struggling with mental illness, you could contact the National Mental Health Hotline at 866-903-3787 or go to mentalhealthhotline.org. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and consider subscribing to my channel. Till next time, Darklings.